And you look like you don't look like the. You lost weight?
What? I'm not sure.
Yes. Take a kiss of chocolate.
Yes.
And then everybody say, okay.
Beautiful.
Everybody say Hilchos Purim, which is what's in it?
Oi.
Kuf Mem Aleph.
לא שם ילד, לא אחד.
Simin Kuf Mem, actually. Let's start with Kuf Mem.
What page?
The pages are going to be problematic. Everyone different. Simin Kuf Mem, here. Look for Kuf Mem, the Simin.
What you said?
Yeah,
שלוש.
this is chocolate first. Yeah. Right here.
No, it's funny, but what?
Kuf Mem. Simin Kuf Mem. Seder Arba Parshiyos. Towards the ending of the Sefer.
Yeah, check it out for parties.
Shabbos Shlefnei Reish Chodesh Adar. Hasamach L'Nissen.
Yes.
Shabbos Parsha Shkolim. I mean, you have two others. The other, which is Samach to Nissen. So the Shabbos before that Reish Chodesh, meaning before Reish Chodesh Adar base, is the Shabbos Parsha Shkolim. Like this past Shabbos was Chav Tes Adar. It was a Shabbos before Reish Chodesh Adar base. That was Parsha Shkolim. Why do we reach Shkolim then? We reach Shkolim because the times of the Beis Hamikdash, every year, the Yidden would give a Masa Shekel donation to keep the Beis Hamikdash running. This was the donation that kept the Beis Hamikdash running. You had to give, you were obligated to give. And Rish Chodesh Adar was the time when they started to announce that everyone should bring in the Masa Shekel. And the point was that by Rish Chodesh Nisan time, that was a new fiscal, what is it called, fiscal year? Yeah. The new fiscal year was Rish Chodesh Nisan in the Beis Hamikdash, the new financial year, when they used the money for the karbanis from the new donation, the new trumas.
Not Texas, too.
Not April 15th. Rish Chodesh Nisan. Not so far away, April 15th. Rish Chodesh Nisan. So, so these days we don't have a Beis Hamikdash, but we make a zeicher to the fact that they were machrizin, they were announced to start bringing in the shkolim, not on Rish Chodesh, because not everyone maybe is in the shul, but on the Shabbos prior to Rish Chodesh, we need Parsha Shkolim. What would happen if Rish Chodesh fell on Shabbos? This year we just missed it. Sunday was Rish Chodesh. It's a Shabbos. Shabbos wasn't. It was Erev. But if Rish Chodesh was Shabbos next year, oh, then it knows the next year's schedule. Azai who Shabbos Shkolim, then that Shabbos itself is Shabbos Shkolim. Rish Chodesh is by year. Next year again, we're having Erev Pesach Shechalis b'Shabbos. We might see in Gimel Sefer in such a year, where like you're saying next year, when Rish Chodesh falls on the Shabbos, you take out three Sefer Torah in such a kriyas.
Not like two.
One for Shabbos, one for Rish Chodesh, one for Shkolim. This year we only did two because it wasn't Rish Chodesh. But Yishin Koyin Shisha, your Parshas HaShavua, the first Sefer Torah you would read 6 aliyas. Bashani, the second Sefer Torah, Koyin Hashvi, the seventh person reads V'shal Rish Chodesh. Meschilim B'yem HaShabbos, you don't read on Rish Chodesh that falls on the Shabbos, you don't read the entire Parshas Rish Chodesh like we did this morning, the day before. You just read from the ending of Yom HaShabbos. Chatzi Kaddish, after that second Torah reading, and Bashlishi, the third Torah reading, Koyin Maftir, Parshas Shkolim, Maftirin after the Shkolim, and the Maftir is always from the last Sefer Torah, the Kriya of the last Sefer Torah connected to that one, which is Shkolim. When you make a mistake, and people the second Sefer Torah was Shkolim instead of Rish Chodesh, you finish it. The ham after what you do the after. Now your last Sefer Torah you read is Rish Chodesh. Koine b'shalish chodesh, and after Gamkin after the Shabbos and chodesh, because the third Sefer Torah was Rish Chodesh, you have to change the Haftarah now. Siv Beis, Shabbos shelifnei Purim, who Shabbos Parshas Zocher. Aces, that's upcoming Shabbos.
Excellent.
The next one, two Shabbosim, which is going to be right. Purim is going to be Matzah Shabbos. So that Shabbos is Parshas Zocher.
When is Purim?
Because Purim is Sunday, Matzah Shabbos Sunday. So Tainus Esther is pushed back to Thursday.
Hi, best things. Going to the Megillah lunch.
So since Purim is a story of Haman, Haman came from Amalek, from Agogi, right? Haman Hagogi. Because Haman came from Agog. That's where he originated from. Shaul Melech allowed Agog to stay alive. And Agog managed that night to father a child. And that's where the whole story of Purim came about. That's a famous Levart that the Siddush Levart, one of the big tzaddikim, said that, we know the Haftarah that we're going to read in Parsha Zocher, we read a very special Haftarah. Haftarah is always connected to the Kriya Satire of that Shabbos. You're reading about Zocher, Amalek. Haftarah is about the story how Hashem told Shmuel told Shaul, Hashem is telling you in the Nevuah that you should wipe out Amalek. And completely. And Shaul left Agog alive, and he left the animals alive. And Hashem told Shmuel that because of this, I am no Shaul's melucha is going to be torn away from him. He's not going to be king anymore because he didn't obey my command. And Shmuel came to Shaul, and Shaul came to greet him and said, "Listen, I fulfilled Hashem's command. I wiped out Amalek." So he said, "What am I hearing? All these sounds of the cattle making noise and everything." Yeah. He said, "Well, I want to bring that karbanis to Hashem." So he had good intentions. Shmuel told him back, "Shmoya, toiv shmoya mizebach toiv." Better to listen than to bring all these good karbanis, right? And in the beginning, when Shaul's language used to Shmuel was Hakimoisi dvar Hashem, I fulfilled the word of Hashem. So the shaila is, how could Shaul say Hakimoisi dvar Hashem? What do you mean you established the word of Hashem? So say like this. The whole story during Purim time, it says that the Yidden returned to Hashem in a very high level. That it says Kiblu Masha Kiblu Kvar. Chazal says that they re-accepted what they already accepted at Matan Torah. In Matan Torah, Hashem took the mountain and put it over Klal Yisrael. So it was like an oinus. We were forced. Siddush Svarim say that it's not just a mountain. Hashem forced them, overpowered them with showing his greatness, and they were forced to love him. They were forced to run. It wasn't just a physical. They were forced to love Hashem. But Purim time, there was no great revelation. It was a very difficult time, a very dark time. They were going to be wiped out. And that was it. And Klal Yisrael said, they didn't say, "Oh, let's shmad Rachman al-Tzlan." No, stood strong, and they passed in a Nisayan. So it says that's when the Yidden really accepted the Torah upon themselves. So Shaul Melech was telling Shmuel, listen, by me leaving Agog alive, what happened? Later on, Agog had a descendant is going to have a descendant. His name is going to be Haman. Because of Haman's Gezerah, Klal Yisrael accepted upon themselves the Torah. They kept upon themselves, they took upon themselves Matan Torah in a real way. So, Hakimaisi Dvar Hashem, I established the word of Hashem. Through me, what's the answer? The answer is, doesn't come to listening. You have to listen. The cheshbin, the pilpul, it's a good pilpul. The seichel, it's solid. There's no way to slug it up. It makes a lot of sense. But the ending of it, when Hashem says to do something, you don't come up with your papulim.
And I remember the end of that story and the Torah is Shaul Melech goes after Shmuel and he says, "Please, I didn't mean any harm." And
and then his cloak, his robe, got torn away from him. So Shaul Navi says to I'm sorry, Shmuel Hanavi says to Shaul HaMelech, this represents the kingdom being torn away from you.
Right. Correct.
And what a continuation.
What?
When Amalek came next to Shmuel, where he said, Achen Sarah Mavet. He saw old man. He said, "No, you're not going to kill me." And what he did, he took sword
Wow.
and killed him.
Yes, yes.
Remember this episode?
Shaul had to walk the Kodesh Hino of the few generations later, just like Eshes Potiphar looked at
Very good.
from
I just remember it from the Torah. I have to go over it a little more.
also Gavur one.
I don't know. This is the real. This is the neshama of Shaul HaMelech. It's Shaul HaMelech himself, or it's the side of Shaul. I don't know. What was exactly lying behind it. But it says in the Chsiv, the Alter Rebbe has in his Maimarim. He says this is the language he uses. Shaul holach acher hatam. Sholach went after tam, after reasoning. In this case, Shaul went with reasoning. He had reasoning svaras that were kedusha. He was not chas v'shalom not kedusha. It was l'taiva for the Eibishter for kedusha. But Shaul halach achar hatam. David had the inyan of bittul and a kabbalas el machashamayim. The Rebbe, when he one time said this, he said, even though we shouldn't speak about Shaul HaMelech, say something negative about him, but Shaul HaMelech is happy that we're able to learn out from him how that we should know that you have to listen without any cheshbainis.
Doesn't make the same concept. He wants the more people there are, the public will produce.
Could be, yeah. Shem Shemayim, a lot of people, the Shem Shemayim Neskabnu.
Well, we also learned last week from the Tanya how we should not judge another Jew until we're in their position.
Not judging, but on the other hand, we can't say it's correct. Just because we're not judging, we can't say the act is correct.
100%. But there was a case which the Alter Rebbe mentioned last week in the Tanya, where it was somebody judged Menashe.
The Gemara says, yeah.
And Menashe said,
came in a dream
that if you would be in my shoes, you would do something 10 times as worse.
Right. Yeah.
But we know
Big time. Kol ha'gadol mechavede, yitzei gadol mechavede.
Yeah.
So
the
level of Aveda is a different type of level.
Yeah.
In Siddush Svarim always say that the Koirach also had a certain intent.
We're not judging, because I was judging. Yeah.
Okay.
But 100%, what Shaul did was 100% wrong. He should have listened to exactly what Hashem said and wipe out Amalek 100%.
So we therefore read for Purim about Amalek, wipe out Amalek, Pasha Zocher. Shabbos Lefnei Rish Chodesh.
What I learned, he didn't do it with intent. There was no nakuda. If you look at the word nine phrase,
Zocher.
he interpreted as zocher. I mean, zecher, as zocher, not zecher. So he didn't have to explain it. It was just a mistake of interpretation.
The cattle and Agog. He left the cattle alive and the Agog.
I mean, the Torah doesn't have nakuda. You can look at it zocher, zecher.
Right.
talking about
There's different levels. Whenever we talk about anything in Torah, there's the Pshat, the Remez, the Drush, and the Soid, and it's all the same words in the same episode. There's different levels.
Shaul was very tough with Jonathan. Ben Avat Mardut, and he threw the sword on him. It was very hot.
Gvura.
Was it Kohen? No,
Gvura.
wasn't the Kohen. Shaul, no.
It says that Hashem gave Shaul Sheva.
Yes.
Gave him a atzvos, it says. Okay. The Shabbos Lefnei Rish Chodesh, the Shabbos Parshas HaChodesh. The Shabbos before Rish Chodesh Nisan, we read about Parshas HaChodesh, Chodesh Delachem, the idea of making Rashi Chadashim. That's the first Rish Chodesh is Nisan. V'mchal Rish Chodesh b'Shabbos, Oz Hu Parshas HaChodesh. That is a Parshas HaChodesh. V'dinoi k'mei Chodesh Adar shechal b'Shabbos. Has the same din. You can read 3 Sifrei Torah because it's going to be Shabbos, Rish Chodesh, and Parshas HaChodesh. Shabbos Shulfnei Parshas HaChodesh. Who Shabbos Parshas Parah? When is Parshas Parah? Parshas Parah always is the Shabbos before Shabbos HaChodesh. Sometimes there's a week in between after Shabbos Parshas Zachar. There's a week in between. There's no Parsha. Sometimes there is no Hefsik. So therefore, we always say Parshas Parah is the Parsha before Parshas HaChodesh. Now, why do we Parshas Parah? Because that was a time when the Yidden were going to bring the Korban Pesach. They need to become Tahar from Tumas Meis to come to the Beis Hamikdash. So they would read about the Parah Aduma, the halachas of the Parah Aduma. Yesh Shoimrim Sif Gimel Parshas HaZachar Parshas Parah Hayavim the Kroisam Midiraisa. Some say that Parshas Zachar and Parshas Parah, you chayiv to read it min HaTorah. Therefore, when you're reading the mafter, which is Parshas Zachar, Parshas Parah, you should not allow a child to read the mafter. Min hadin, you're allowed to call up a katan for mafter.
Allowed to read.
Katan to read mafter. Obnei hayishuvim she'ein lam minyan tzrichin shivay lamakish yishmin. Those that lived in villages where there was no minyan, it was very common then. People, for parnasa reasons, had to live in smaller villages where they had the farms, they had the Yidden had the business, the alcohol business, the bars, shlichus, they were on shlichus. So they need to come to the big town for the minyan because this is a very important kliya. I can't come. Yikru Oisan Beneginis Kira, at least read it with trap in the Chumash. Then look inside the Chumash and read it. Now, I want to point out an interesting thing. We know that the Shabbos before, we just read, the Shabbos before Purim is Parsha Zachar. So in 2 weeks is Parsha Zachar. We read about Amalek. Which Parsha do we read about Amalek? In the ending of Parshas Kiseitze. The ending of Parshas Kiseitze, there's a lot of mitzvahs in Parshas Kiseitze. The ending, we read about Amalek. Zachar she'asach Amalek. Timcha zeicha Amalek. Should erase him. Zachar she'asach Amalek. Remember and erase him Amalek. Leisishkach. You should not forget. All the mitzvahs are in Parshas Kiseitze. There's one other parsha in the Torah. I'm not talking about Nevi'im and Ksuvim in the Torah itself, where it talks about Amalek. And that is the ending of Parashat B'Shalach. The ending of Parashat B'Shalach, the ending of Parashat Kiseitze, the ending of Parashat B'Shalach says that Hashem told Moshe, Sim ba'ozne Yeshua, tell Yeshua that he should call on Nashim, but say hilachim Amalek. Choose people and warriors and go out and fight Amalek.
But I have to wipe them out, though. It wasn't.
Vayachle Yeshua.
It wasn't to wipe them out.
No, at that point it wasn't to wipe them. Vayachle Yeshua, he weakened them and he didn't wipe them out. By Shalom Melech it was to wipe them out. Now we know on Purim itself, we have a Kriya on Purim. What Kriya do we read on Purim? Parashas B'Shalach. The Shabbos before, which is Parashas Zachar, we read the ending of Parashas Kiseitze.
Interesting.
On Purim itself, we have a Kriya Satira because Purim is associated with Amalek. So we read on Purim, Parashas B'Shalach. That's what we read. So,
wow.
Interesting thing, the Magen Avraham says, if someone did not make it to Shul, Parashas Zachar, they couldn't make it to Shul. It's an important Parsha to be in Shul. But you weren't there. So come on Purim to Shul. You're going to hear Parashas B'Shalach. It also talks about Amalek.
It has to be B'diavad.
B'diavad, it's okay. Ask the Mishabruda. I don't understand the Magen Avraham over here. Parashas Zachar is Parashas Kiseitze. But Purim is Parashas B'Shalach. It doesn't make sense to me that Parashas B'Shalach can be moitzi you for the mitzvahs I say of remembering what Amalek did. Because if Parashas Kiseitze is the Parashas Zachar, you look inside, That's the parsha that talks to you. Zachash is Amalek, Timcha Zechas Amalek. Out like Tishkach, you have the assay of to remember what Amalek did. You have the assay of Timcha to erase Amalek, and you have the Loy Tishkach not to forget the Loisasa. You have all the mitzvahs right there.
Exactly.
You don't have that in Parshat B'Shalach. Parshat B'Shalach, you have the story about Yeshua. Yeshua went out, and Moshe lifted up his hands. You have the story there. Says the Mishabura, I don't understand the Magen Avraham. How could you be Yoitza? If you miss Pasha Zacher, you could be Yoitza. If you can't come in, you could be Yoitza on Purim and Pasha.
Give him a second chance, like Pesach.
He leaves off with a question. But I think it could be a pshat, maybe, to answer up for the Magen Avraham, that the Magen Avraham had a little different look at it. What is the mitzvah of remembering Amalek? Is the mitzvah to read in the Torah Sukkim about remembering what Amalek, the mitzvahs, or to actually read what Amalek did? The story about Yeshua talks us what Amalek did and how Yeshua went, and he went to wipe out Amalek. We're reading actually an episode of stories. We're remembering what Amalek did. Parashat Kiseitze is the mitzvahs about it. It's the mitzvahs telling you to erase it, Amalek, to fight with Amalek, not to forget what Amalek did, to remember what Amalek did, all the mitzvahs associated with it. So L'chora Parashat B'Shalach should be fine. You're actually remembering what Amalek did. Just bringing up idea, but obviously, Kimuvan, even the Shabura has a shaila, it's shailas in his beer halacha. Halacha, if you miss Parashat Zachar, you hear many the women that they like to come on to shul and hear before the Megillah, Kriyas HaTorah, we read before, and we actually hold the Sefer Torah throughout the Megillah. After we do Glila, we go straight to Kriyas Megillah. We have the Sefer Torah still someone has to hold the Sefer Torah.
Wow.
Okay. Rabbi say Kufim Aleph Hilchos Megillah. Mishenichnas Oder Marbim B'Simcha.
Which other, Aleph or Bet?
Well, the Rebbe held both.
Both.
Yeah.
Hasn't said it.
Doesn't discuss it. Yisrael sheyesh leidin udvarim im oibik echal mazalis. You have a court case with a guy. Yishbeit imay b'chodesh zeh. You should do the court case, set it up for other. Bari mazli. It's a healthy mazel for Klal Yisrael this month. It says in the Megillah, hachodesh asher nepach. The entire month turned over. It wasn't just that day. The month became a different month. And why is that? We know that Haman, he threw the girdle and it fell on Adar.
I didn't know.
But it fell on Yudalad Adar. Right? On Yud Gimel Adar. On Yud Gimel Adar. The girdle. Now he was happy. Samach Haman Simcha Gedolah, the Gemara says. You learned that already? Samach Haman Simcha Gedolah. Why? Because he said that in this month, Moshe Mace. What better month could it be? Moshe Rabbeinu Mace. So the Gemara says he didn't know that he was also born on that same day. And Rashi explains, Kedai, a famous Rashi, Kedai Shitachaper Yom HaLeida al Yom HaMisa. Something like this. That the Yom HaLeida is more powerful than the Yom HaMisa. The fact that Moshe Rabbeinu came into the world is more powerful than the fact that he was Nifter. The fact that he was born and that Moshe came here and taught us what he taught us and gave us what he was able to give us, that is able to mechaper on any bad simanim that could be caused by the Yom HaMisa. So you see that even Haman understood that the month is connected. His goyra fell out on Yud Gimel Adar that he's going to wipe out the Yud. But because it was in the same month as Zayin Adar, the same month, there's a correlation. So Lamaisa, when everything turned around, and why did it turn around? Because Moshe Rabbeinu was noiled in that month. It showed that the whole month was really a special month. the latest Moshe accomplished, the whole month was a special month. So the Gemara, the pasuk actually says it's a chodesh Hashanah. The whole month changed over for the good. The Gemara Yishami actually learns out from there that if someone's going to be on a boat, and when it comes Purim, Yud Yudalit, Lapoya, we chayik Purim on Yudalit. The Goyda was in Yugimel. We chayik Yudalit because Yudalit day we rest. We always chayik the day when we rest. Like Chaf Dalid, Kislev was the last day of the Milchama. Chaf Hei's day we rest. We start to celebrate in Chaf Hei. Always we rest. We celebrate in Yom HaMenucha. So Yud Gimel was the Goyra. We fought. We won. Yudalit is when we rest. When we rest, and we are kaveya the chagiga. Yishami says, if you know you're not going to have a Megillah when it comes to Purim, you're going to be on a boat somewhere. You don't own a Megillah because the whole month changed over. You could read it earlier. You could read it early.
If you know you're going away.
No, you're going away. And it's even brought lahalacha, this idea. I'm not passing the shaila, has to be asked on a case-to-case basis, but there are situations, let's say, you have someone in a jail, and they're not going to allow anyone in on Purim Day to read the Megillah, or no one can come to him on Purim Day. There might be a svara that someone could come and read the Megillah to him earlier in the month, a few days earlier, because they're not going to let them in on that day. Sometimes you have a chaplain there, it could be either reform or something else, and decided, this day it's not going to. So therefore, there's this svara, you need a psak from a rav, and you have to think whether you can see whether you can make with a bracha, not with a bracha.
Kosher Megillah?
10 people, not 10 people.
Kosher Megillah?
Kosher Megillah, yeah.
You can get.
Based on this Gemara Yerushalmi, that a chodesh Hanepach. Now, Mishenichas Adam Arim B'Simcha, before we go weiter, I want to point out something. The Shulchan Aruch, the Kitta Shulchan Aruch mentions this. It originates from the Gemara, Mishenichas Adam Arim B'Simcha. And, however, it's not mentioned in the actual Shulchan Aruch. Rabbi Yosef Cairo and Mechaber and Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah and the Mechaber do not bring Mishenichas Adam Arim B'Simcha. The Magen Avram on the side of the Shulchan Aruch mentions it. So the Kitzur brings it. The Mishabura brings it. But in the actual Shulchan Aruch, it's not there. And the Rambam also doesn't bring it. However, they do bring Mishenichas of Memaitim B'Simcha. That they do bring. So the question is, why don't they bring Mishenichas Oder Ma'arvim B'Simcha? So there are various reasons given. I'm just going to share with you a Geschmack word. The Rebbe discusses this, but there's a Geschmack word from the Munkacher Rebbe, the Minchas Elazar, the grandfather of today's Rebbe. He said a good word. He said like this: if Chazal Mechanichnas of Ma'atim B'Simcha, Chazal want to define. You find in the Gemara, Chazal define how you decrease in Simcha. You don't build certain types of buildings, types of gardens, and you don't make certain events. This is how we decrease in Simcha. So Chazal give certain definitions how to decrease. Mishenichas Adam Ma'arvim B'Simcha, the Gemara doesn't give any definition. How do we Ma'arvim B'Simcha? It doesn't say. Why doesn't it say? So explain like this. Chazal didn't want to give any limits to the Ma'arvim B'Simcha. Ma'arvim B'Simcha, as much as you could, in all different ways, Ma'arvim B'Simcha. When it came to Memaitim B'Simcha, we don't want you to get too carried away with it. If Chazal would not explain how you should decrease into Simcha, you'll decrease, you'll fall into depression. So Chazal said, we're explaining to you, there's certain limitations to the Memaitim B'Simcha. It has a definition to it. Don't do this, don't do that, but not more than that.
Like, for example, Rabbi Morozov said it was permitted to do l'chayims during Chodesh. He specifically explained to us that we shouldn't wipe out the simcha completely. Just diminish the amount of simcha we have.
There's a Chassidus Shabbat. It says, "Mishenichnas of mematin."
Yeah,
When of enters, you decrease.
yeah,
How do you decrease?
Besimcha.
B'simcha.
yeah.
The Chassidim didn't know how to read. They didn't know the Nekudas. So they had different ways where they stopped the commas and the periods, The Litvak, he knows how to learn it. He learned in Volozhin and Yeshiva. But the Chassidim, they had their own interpretation of things.
By the way, I actually think the Hasidim understood it better.
Anyways, it was a joke. So anyways, the Minchas Elazar concludes and he says that so that's the way he understands why Chazal didn't define what does it mean simcha. They didn't say make a joke, dance, have music. They didn't say any definition. Eat something, no definitions. But of is definitions. So he gives a Chassidish look, is that Chazal didn't want us to get carried away with the bitterness and the merirus, so they gave certain definitions. Ma'arim simcha in all different ways, there's no limit. Now Shulchan Aruch, in the Rambam, these are codes of Jewish law. They don't mention Mishenichas Adam Marbim B'Simcha. They only mention Mishenichas Av. So it says that up the Mugpatcher, when it comes to halacha has to be a defined act, a clear act. We don't write feelings in Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch is do this, don't do this. So since Mishenichas Av Mamaitim B'Simcha has certain definitions to it, Chazal gave definitions to it, to decrease in this, to decrease in that. So it's codified in halacha, in Hilchos Teshabab, in Hilchos Bein HaMetzarim. We have the halachas there in Shulchan Aruch. Decrease in this, decrease in that. But Mishenichas Adam Marbim B'Simcha, which the Gemara did not define because it's not limited, it's all types of simcha. What is there to bring into Shulchan Aruch? There's no thing Chazal told us to do a specific thing. There's no mitzvah, do this specific thing, do that specific thing. Every person should do what makes him b'simcha. So al-kain, it's not something for a code of halachas. Anyways, this is one of the pshatim over here. And some sefer has a different pshat. Years ago, I think we one time went into that over here. We discussed it, and the Rebbe had his own little take on this thing. Akavan halacha, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch brings it. Shenichas adam marbim b'simcha. Siv beis. Bimei Mordechai ve'Esther nikalo Yehudim b'shloisha aser l'chodesh Adar lamed al nafshem l'nokim me'aveyem oitzichim levakish rachem eis Hashem yizbarach she'azreim. Mutzinu shekasher hayu yisel b'mechamis anu she'azreim. We find that whenever Yidden went to Mechama, they fasted. Hashem should help them. V'gam Moshe Rabbeinu alav Hashem. We find in the Torah. Parsha B'Shalach, when he came to fight with Amalek, he fasted.
How we know?
Okay, it's probably as well in the days of Mordechai and Esther, they fasted in Yigim Adar. Esther. They liskish abayis barashmei roya v'shemei tfilos kol ish. Hears and listens to anyone who has fast when he has tzaris. Returns to Hashem with his whole heart. Just like Hashem listened to us then in that time of Purim. It's not an obligation as strong as the other four Tanesim that are clearly mentioned in the pasuk. Tzayma Chamishi, Tzayma Asiri, Tzayma Shlishi, Tzayma Shvi. They're clearly mentioned in the pasuk. Women that are fasting, that are pregnant or nursing. Someone who's a chayla has eye pain. If they have a lot of pain, fast. A woman that gave birth in the first 30 days does not fast. But in Chosim, Chosim got married before Tanis Esther. Next week, he gets married, and during the Shabbat Brachas falls out. Tanis Esther ain't sichim l'sanis. They make up the Tanis later on. Avashara Brim, the Yifrishus Atzim and Tzibur, other healthy individuals should not separate themselves from the community. They should fast. This year it's going to be a little longer because change the clock. Because even someone was traveling, there's a story that I brought in the Rishonim, even someone was traveling, hard from the fast, but since you're not a choila, tzarich l'sanis. L'maisa, by the way, the meaning is that they do not make up the fast. If you're potter from a fast, you don't make up the fast. Someone's potter, they don't have to later on when they're healthier fast another fast, so you mash them for not fasting. I want to point out something. We have to go to the Ma'ariv. I just want to point out something. Very interesting the way the Kitta Shulchan Aruch brings it down. This already starts from Toisus and the Rosh. It does not say anywhere in the Torah that you should fast in Tainus Esther. Nowhere in the Megillah. Not only that, nowhere in Mishnais and Gemara does it say you should fast in Tainus Esther. Nowhere. It doesn't say it anywhere. There is a word on the first Amud in Megillah. It says that why are you allowed to read the Megillah early? The Mishnah says, the first Mishnah says Megillah Nekras, be it Aleph, Yibez, Gimel. We know the Gemara, the Megillah says you're allowed to read on Yudalat Tezvav. Yudalat is for everyone. Shushan Purim is Tezvav, all the Walden cities. But how do we know earlier? The Gemara learns out because it says Bizman Nehem, that there are many times for reading the Gemara. So for the Megillah. So the Gemara says Bizman Nehem comes to add 2 more days. In their times, plural 4 means at least 2. So we know Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, or Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, but where do we get the extra day? Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, 3 days, not 2 days. The Gemara says Yud Gimel doesn't need a day because it's Yoim Kihila Lakoili. The last, I think, line in the first Amud Megillah. Yoim Kihila Lakoil, the day of gathering for everyone. What does that mean? Yoim Kihila Lakoil. There's different interpretations. One of the in the Rishonim. One of the pshatim is that we gathered together to fight. That was the war was on that day. We had to fight our enemies. So what bigger mess was it? We don't need to have a special pasuk to tell us that we could read Megillah on that day. Obviously, we could read in Gimel. So Bizanaim is coming to add an extra 2 days before Yud Gimel, Yud Aleph and Yud Beis. And that's we know that you're allowed to read Megillah in certain situations, earlier dates. But there is another interpretation about, I think Rashi actually says, that the Iker Hanes is that they were able to win their enemies. That's Iker Hanes. You don't need a pasuk to tell you that it's a svara, that the Iker Hanes, you can read the Megillah. But Toisvis and the Rosh, they gave a different shot. Yom Kihil Lakoil, you know what that means? There was a day that everyone gathered together to all the shuls to fast. And the days of Tainus Esther, they had to fast for the Muhammad. Severe is the only remez, according to certain Rishonim, that is referring to the fact that they fasted at that time. But L'chol Hadayis, you have no Mishnayis, no Gemara, no Pasik that directly tells you to fast in Tainus Esther, and therefore it's a minig, a very old minig that goes all the way back to that time, and therefore it's not a chiv as much as the other Dalatanesim that are clearly in the Nach. Kalin Nevi'im tells us to fast in the other Dalatanesim. That's if we could be more. In certain situations, we're more makel for that. Just in Messiah before Maidiv, that is the Rebbe had written a letter before Purim to someone, and he wrote him a shaila in the ending in the letter that he said, "How come this fast is called Tainus Esther? What does it have to do with Esther?" Esther said, "Sumo Olai," told Mordechai, "Okay, I'll go into the king. I'm going to put myself in danger, but fast for me 3 days, 3 nights. I'll also fast 3 days, 3 nights." That was Tainus Esther, but that didn't happen before Purim. That was Pesach time. And it says that a Yavar Mordechai was over, and he abolished Seder that year. There was no Seder that year. There was no Seder. They fasted. It was not going to be a Klal Yisrael b'chlal. They fasted a Daven 3 days, 3 nights during Nisan, Chodesh Nisan, and it was 3 days. That makes sense as Tainus Esther. What is our day that we fast a day before Purim? One day in right before Purim have anything to do with Esther's fast? It doesn't seem b'chlal in connection. He had a shaila. The Maisa was the letter sat on the Rebbe's desk, and it wasn't sent out. And by the time it came to sending it out, the Rebbe said, "Mis'akim mishloyach hamichtov," and I thought of an idea like a vertel, a type of word to answer the chidudi, a sharp answer to answer why it's called Tainus Esther. The Rebbe is like this. You know, we know there's a halacha, the soldiers are not allowed to fast. You have to be strong to fight the enemy. You can't have soldiers fasting, shvach. Soldiers all have to fast. That's a clear halacha in the Rambam. No, not allowed to fast. Over here, when it came Purim, there was no army. Klal Yisrael had no army. Everyone was standing up against their neighbors. Everyone had to stand up against their neighbors, all the anti-Semites, to take care of all the anti-Semites. So the Maisa, Klal Yisrael, each one of them had to be strong, and they were not allowed to fast. The men, the women, everyone had to be strong. There was no, you're a soldier, I'm not a soldier. Everyone had to get up and fight. So no one was allowed to fast. There was only one person in Klal Yisrael who was able to fast. She was in the base Hamalchus, Esther. She was protected. No one could touch her. She was able to fast. So it's called Tainus Esther. She fasted for Klal Yisrael when Klal Yisrael couldn't fast. Wow. There were the other three fasts that happened much earlier on, when she was going to meet Achashverosh to ask him to come to the meal, make a meal in the Mishnah, and to repeal. But the whole story of Yitim Adar happened later on, when the actual day that came later on. At that day, she said, I'll fast for Klal Yisrael. They should win.
But I have a question on Esther.
Yeah.
Why she push her servant? Gam ani v'na'arotai natsum ken. They are going, girls. Why is they have to fast? Because she's fasting.
Good Kash, anyone has an answer?
I just came to her mind now. I don't know.
Who was the representative the letter to that never got sent out?
It was sent eventually, but
who was he sending it?
Yeah.
I don't know if we know. It's printed in the back of the Putzsichus, the letter.
Wow.
Almost says, להשמיד להורג את כל היהודים ביום אחד.
So what is it? Oh, he gave him 20.
One day. Now we celebrate 30